Hi everybody, Ricky here from Behind the Bars TV. In today's episode of True Crime Podcast, we've got no other than Shaun Attwood. He doesn't need much of an introduction because he's the original true crime podcaster, or the one that goes back the furthest, I would say so. But I think it was just over a year ago when I went and done a podcast with Shaun himself. Obviously, I went on to promote my book, and then I went on to do my own YouTube channel. And it's grown at quite a steadily rate, 58,000 within, well, just over a year, to be honest, which is quite astounding. A lot better than what I thought it would have been. But Shaun's story, we're going to get a bit into it today. Everyone will know quite a bit of his story if they've been following his channel. I read some of his books whilst I was in prison, and I do know quite a bit, but there is bits that I don't know that we're going to delve into today. But he doesn't need much of an introduction. But Shaun Attwood, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Man, I just want to say congratulations, Ricky. It took me, I think it was 5 years to get 2,000 subs when I first started. You are absolutely blowing it away. So well done, man. And my story in a nutshell then, you know, I'm from a little town in between Liverpool and Manchester called Widnes. Didn't have much money growing up. Went to America. Made a couple of million in the stock market in my 20s. No common sense whatsoever. Flew my best mate over, Wildman. R.I.P. Wildman. He died a couple of years ago. He's a big fella. And we ended up establishing like a rave ecstasy business. May 16th, 2002, SWAT team came, arrested us. Over 100 of us in total over the months in groups. And we started out in a famous jail run by a sheriff called Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And he prided himself on being America's toughest sheriff. He had 2 TV shows back then. One was Inmate Idol, where they do like singing and stuff in the jail with celebrities on the panel. And they had Smile You're Under Arrest, where people with outstanding warrants would get a letter in the mail saying they'd won a prize. And then when they went to collect the prize, he would pop up with his goon squad and throw them in the jail. But behind that facade, Ricky, he created an extremely dangerous environment. And that's how my story really started to garner attention. Was I asked the guard, how do you guys get away with these things? Dead rats in the food, cockroaches crawling on us at night times, guards murdering mentally ill prisoners. They even murdered a blind prisoner. People can Google Brian Crenshaw, Scott Norberg. And the guard said to me, the world doesn't give a shit about prisoners, and the world has no idea what's going on in here. So my writing got smuggled out. This was back in 2004, maximum security Madison Street Jail, through visitation, put on the internet as a blog, John's Jail Journal. So it wasn't in my name, John, Jon. It's still up right now, time-stamped, everything. And that's what established me on the internet. I was still inside. YouTube, I got out in 2007. YouTube channel started in 2007. And then I spent the next 10 years living in my mate's bedroom, just building up my socials.
Oh, did you?
yeah, on the dole. Yeah.
Oh, we've done all right then, haven't you?
Yeah, it's doing all right now, yeah.
What are you at now? Just over 800,000?
So we've got over 800K on YouTube, 1.2 million on TikTok. All combined, almost 2.5 mil right now.
Right. Doing well. So it's took you, how long has it taken you since 2007 to get it built right up?
Ricky, I found that stock market work, publishing books, writing books, selling ecstasy, becoming a YouTuber, whatever it is, you've got to sweat blood for 10 years before you get anywhere. And too many people give up.
It's hard work. Like, obviously, when I first started doing it as well, I think it's nearly 2 years, but when I first started, it wasn't going to be prison related. It was going to be about my book, which is prison related. But as soon as I started getting into the prison side of it, the views were just going crazy, and that's how it ended up becoming the way it is.
I would say, Ricky,
it takes hard work. You've got to be consistent, haven't you?
I would say what shines, Ricky, is your authenticity. Yeah. People it resonates, and people relate to that.
Yeah, well, you've got to be on here, like, because you've seen all the other bits of beefs and the way the other people are going on. They're getting nothing but negative stuff on the channel, and it's like, that's not what I'm about, and it's not what you're about on here either, is it?
No, no. There has been a lot of drama on the way, but those people who started that drama with me have mostly called me up and apologized. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do, Shaun, obviously, before you went to America, what age were you when you went to America?
So I originally went to America as a kid. Like my parents moved to Illinois when I was a baby, I think, like a toddler. But my mum didn't like it, so they came home. But we had relatives did establish in Illinois, and they moved out to Arizona over the years because what happened was during World War II, the handsome American soldiers were knocking up local English women in my region in the Northwest, Burton Wood Air Base. And that's how some of our family members got established in America.
Right.
So, and I would visit aunts in Arizona as a teenager, and coming from Widnes, you know, the plane comes into land, you see all the swimming pools in the backyards, and they hear the English accent, they roll out the red carpet. My aunt, I think I was 16, my aunt changed my date of birth in my passport, so I was 21. Took me out nightclubbing, and she was introducing me to all these beautiful American women as Paul McCartney's nephew. So
Well,
I'm getting all this attention, just a little nobody from Widnes. Suddenly I'm thinking, right, when I finish at university, I want some of this. So that's what happened.
So when you were over here before you went to America, did you get into, were you into any sort of trouble, or were you just your average kid?
What happened, Vicky, was I was like a nerdy guy who was into the stock market, but I hung out with a group of kids. We'd watch those street gang movies like the Sweats. We call ourselves the Sweats. We'd watch the Warriors and the Wanderers, and the guy running our little gang, he was Wildman's oldest brother. Wildman was the youngest, and he wouldn't let him join. He would like beat him up, and I splintered off from the gang and just took Wildman under my wing because he was 2 years younger than me. And that's a lot when you're kids.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, he just started to grow massive. He was picking school teachers up and putting them in rubbish bins. And they got so scared of him at his school, they had him outside raking leaves with the caretaker. And that's when he got red dots in his head telling him to hurt people. And he would show up at my house just completely black and blue, his head swollen out here. It looked like he'd been hit by a train and be like, Peter, what's happened? And he said he'd go down and fight the bouncers at the weekend. He just enjoyed doing it. Just getting beat. Yeah, that was his like hobby at the weekends, was just going and fighting the bouncers and getting beat up. And I guess he was owning his skills.
I'll tell you, that's where the nickname came from, huh?
Well, it came from his uncle Bob, who he was I think a World War II vet, a whiskey-nosed old timer, and he said he's going to be a wild man in when he gets older. Yeah,
that's where it came from, huh?
That's where it came from. Yeah.
So were you obviously were you into the E's before you actually went to America?
Yeah, so it was hard to get any of my mates to go raving with me from Widnes because mostly people stayed in Widnes, going pubs like top of the town. But Wildman, he was really adventurous, so he became my raving partner. And it started out in Manchester and Liverpool. We go like the Conspiracy, the Thunderdome in Manchester. And we go in Liverpool. We started out at the Scrapyard in Toxteth, where Stephen French was at, and the State. And then we went on to the Quadrant Park. Well, it expanded to the point where we're going like Blackpool, Shamu, the Eclipse in Coventry, the Fridge in Brixton. It became our religion.
Were you just going out on the weekends, popping pills, and obviously just jumping around?
Yep, exactly. But I pledged because I told Wildman and his cousin Hammy, there's a quarry at the top of Widnes, Pexill Quarry, and there's a tree, and we call it the thinking tree. So we'd sit on it and we'd, like, what were you going to do when you grow up kind of thing. And I'd say, I'm going to go to America, make $1 million in the stock market, fly you guys over. They say to Wildman, what are you going to do? I'm going to prison because I've got red dots in my head telling me to hurt people. And both of those predictions came true, but I promised him on the thinking tree, I said, Peter, I'm going to fly you to America and get you a job as a wrestler. And you can fight Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and the British Bulldog. This is how idealistic I was at that age. But I did go to America, make a couple of million. Wildman did go to prison for about 5 years. And then I did fly him over. And that's when the seeds of the criminal enterprise were planted.
So when you flew out there, what age were you then? Were you about 19, did you say?
So I'd finished at university, and that time, I think it was 1991. I graduated with a business studies degree, and I went to Arizona, and I was just with my student credit cards. I had no money.
Obviously, when you got there, got into the stock market when you got there, did you say?
So I'd started trading the stock market when I was 16. I started following when I was 14. My economics teacher at St. Joe's in Widnes, he used to give me classes on my own, and he'd be like reading the Financial Times, explaining what all the numbers meant. So I did have quite a bit of experience unnaturally at a young age. So when I got there and they said to me I had to take all these tests to get this license and do this class, I insisted that they just put me in for it right away, and I passed it. And it was like this guy, it was like Wolf of Wall Street. He was like a mafia. It was like hooked to some kind of mafia organization, this penny stock brokerage. And he was looking in my face and he was like, I like you, I like your confidence, but I don't like it when people cross me. Bad things happen to people that cross me. And then they would have these 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting. There was this like the mafia guy, and he'd bring in some like heavy hitters from other brokerages. They were obviously high on coke and chewing gum. And they'd point at the board with all of the commissions for the month. And they'd be like, you're only as big as this numbers on the board for the month. Smiling brokers make the most money. We all had to have mirrors on our quads so we could smile at them. Pacing brokers make the most money. We had like 24-foot curly cords. So we were pacing as we're closing our sales. If you're taking lunches, other brokers are calling your clients. If you're calling your wives, you're calling your girlfriends. Other brokers are calling your clients. And then they'd pound the table and they'd pound the wall. And they had like biker gangs dropping off crystal meth. And if there was any kind of celebration, there'd be a limo downstairs full of strippers taking us to the strip club. There was a guy in there who was a Vietnam vet. He was having flashbacks and he started kung fu kicking and karate chopping the area around him. And that was the quad they put me on. And that was like my introduction to the work world, fresh from the UK.
Sounds pretty crazy.
Crazy.
I bet you thought you were living the dream at that age, as well, being in amongst all that.
I don't know, Ricky, because I had one of the reasons I took ecstasy was because I had social anxiety, and I found it hard calling 500 people a day, 490 of them telling you to F off, to keep doing that day after day after day. But I was schooled by some people. First 2 years, I was almost at the limits of my student credit cards. I was living off cheese on toast and bananas, worried I was going to have to come home. But they put me on this quad called the criminal quad, and I got schooled by those guys. And 5 years in, I ended up becoming the top commission guy in the office, grossing $500,000 a year. So at that point, I had my own staff, secretary, cold callers. I was coming and going. But a lot of it was fueled around crystal meth, because once I started taking meth, my confidence, my aggression on the phone increased. So instead of asking a client to send me $10,000, I'd ask for $100,000, and maybe he'd send me $50,000.
Okay.
So my commissions on the board were just going up and up and up and up. But I was burning myself out, because on meth, you feel superhuman. I was going around not sleeping or eating for days, losing weight, all bug-eyed. My boss said, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Your commissions are going up so high. I was like, all right.
So how were you taking the meth? Then were you just snorting it or ingesting it? Because you can take it a few different ways, can't you?
Yeah, so I like to eat it or snort it. Occasionally I did a hot rail, but I'm not really a smoker, so I wouldn't really do much of that. But Wildman, when he came over, he was just smoking meth and smoking crack, unlimited amounts. And he started to go a bit crazy.
Not a good concoction, is it?
No, what happened was...
What if you're a bit crazy anyway?
Exactly. So me and we get him, like, he's in this house, a shared house, near the Georgian Dragon British pub. This is his first residence on his first visit, because there are many visits. He gets deported and banned for life after this first visit for being a menace to society. So we got him in this house, and me and my girlfriend go over there one night. A bunch of Mexicans answer the door. I'm like, "Where's Peter?" And they're like, "Peter? Yeah, Peter. Peter's Wildman." And they're shaking their heads, "No Peter here." I'm like, "Yeah, Peter lives here." Anyway, one of them starts brandishing a gun. So me and my girlfriend start backpedaling across the street. Wildman just bounces over the street, all smiles. I'm like, "What's happened to your place, Peter? We could have got shot. What the hell's going on?" And he said, "They're the local crack dealers. They like to move around a lot. I'm letting them stay in my place. They're buzzing because I can do one crack rock in one breath. It goes sizzle, 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 ding, 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 and it calms down my red dots." So they're just giving me all this free stuff, while they're staying in my place. And the one at the back, he's over here from Colombia. He's running it, and he wants to invest in the stock market. And I'm just like, "Oh my God," I'm shaking my head. But then I get a call from my aunt a couple of months later. I'm in the office, and she says, "Wildman's place is headline news. Someone's dead. There's yellow tape around it. You need to get your ass up there in case it's him." I shot up there, and I saw the yellow tape. I saw the camera crews. I saw the cops. I had contraband in the car, let's say. So I sped off. I came back at night when it all calmed down. Everyone had gone. There was blood on the step. I walk in the front room, and Peter's sat in there with this man with this like stone, like gravedigger face. And he said he was a homicide detective. So I said to after we discussed things, I said to, and the homicide detective had gone, I asked Wildman what had happened. And he said that a couple had come over to buy crack from the Mexicans, but the Mexicans had moved back over the street. So the woman went over the street to get the product. The man stayed with Peter. The man had a gun. Peter had never seen guns before. He says to the man, "I'm from England. We don't have guns. Can you show me how it works?" And he goes, "Yeah, the safety's on." Pulled the trigger and shot himself in the head right in front of Wildman and fell dead on the step.
Fucking hell. How crazy that, like.
Yeah.
I bet you that shook him up a bit, seeing that.
It did. So I had to move him. And because everywhere he went, like, he invited all the street people in. So he knew a lot of people. And he ended up on the west side. There was 2 women, and there was like a bouncer, long blonde hair, Chippendale style, steroid head, claiming he was a gangster disciple. Anyway, I went up, signed the check, because they were behind on the rent. They said if I fixed the rent, he could stay there. So I fixed the rent. Next day, I get a call from the landlady. "Peter's been evicted." "Why has he been evicted?" "He's beat his roommate up." "How do you know he's beat his roommate up?" She said the steroid head bouncer guy was seen running through his life through the apartment complex in the middle of the night with plasterboard powder all over his head and face. And there's multiple human head-sized holes in the walls. So it done that so rapidly, I managed to stop the check. Now, there was 2 females in there, and one of them said, "Look, I've got a boyfriend in Tempe. He's behind on his rent. Fix that, and we'll move in there." So that was the last place Wildman stayed at before the complete chaos that got him deported. And it was that apartment complex where the criminal enterprise began, because not only were you inviting all the street people, the striptease girls, the street walking Native American transgender sex workers, gangbangers, Russian mafia, Mexican mafia, and we were all doing E in there for the first time. So they were all on my E. So that's how I got to meet all these people, and we bonded, because everywhere he went, because he was larger than life, R.I.P. Wildman, he died just over 2 years ago, 29.5 stone, 6'2". Wherever he walked into, he would just walk up to the biggest, craziest, meanest looking people, crack jokes, and have them laughing, and have the whole bar laughing. So people were just attracted to him. As a kid, when I was a kid, he became my door into this world I couldn't have ever gone. So it was through him I established all these relationships, because people say, "Shaun, I mean, look at you, man. How on earth did you pull this off?" And I'm like, You need to meet my mate Wildman to understand it, really.
On the back end of Wildman. But I read a bit about in your book when you first when you got into the club scene over there wasn't no ease on the scene, was there, like ecstasy?
All right, so there was a tiny little bit. I'm at this dingy underground warehouse party called Chupa. And another one of my best mates from America who's dead now, R.I.P. Acid Joey. So this Native American, this Navajo dressed completely in black, stocky. There was a circle of people watching this guy dance. And he was moving like his body was just water. It was amazing. He should have been in music videos. I thought to myself, whatever he's on, I want some of it. So I waited till he went outside. And I said to him, can I get wherever you're on, basically? And we bonded, and Acid Joey became one of my best mates. But he could only get like 50 to 100 pills locally. So we found out they were getting them from LA, from this guy called Sol. So I'm still a stockbroker at this point, and this is an experiment now. 2 carloads of us went out to Sol's house, buying like 500 or 1,000 pills, I can't remember. Everyone who went out with me is dead. There was Seth, Acid Joey, and Wildman, R.I.P. Seth. And we get to this house in West Hollywood, and Sol's not there. So Wildman's like, I'm just going to go in and kick his door down. What's he doing? Effing leaving me waiting out here like this. And I'm like, that's not going to be good business, Peter. I'm trying to, establish a relationship here. So eventually the guy showed up. I told Acid Joey and Seth to keep Wildman under control, but if it wasn't out in 10 minutes, come and get me. If they need to kick the door down, kick the door down. Because I didn't know what was going to happen, whether I was going to get kidnapped, robbed, anything could have happened. Anyway, have you seen that movie Point Break?
I haven't seen it.
It's got these like surfer gangster dudes. I've never seen surfer gangster dudes till I watched Point Break. So Sol's he's with these surfer gangster dudes. Anyway, I go in, and I'm shitting it. I'm out of state. I'm totally out of my environment here. Anything could happen. And these guys going to rob me. A cop's going to snatch me on the way out. And I say to Sol, can I try a pill? And he goes, yeah, I'll get you a chaser. I said, don't need a chaser. I'm going to chew it. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy. So I put this pill in my mouth. I think it was a Mitsubishi. And I chew it. And I already knew what a good pill tasted like. Yeah, so he then goes and gets the biggest bag of pills I've ever seen, like 1,000, I think it was. He hands over the pills. I hand over the bills. Go out. Everyone's happy. Wildman's happy. So back then, I got like a twin turbo Mazda RX-7, like out of Fast and Furious 1. It's got like a first seat. There was a CD that me and Wildman used to listen to. It was Renaissance by Digweed and DJ Sasha. So I've took this ecstasy. Wildman pops on right away. We put this into the Bose surround sound system, this CD. We're on the big, wide open LA freeway with like 10 lanes this way, 10 lanes that way. And I start to come up on my ecstasy. I could feel the fur on the seat just tickling the back of my head. And just driving home at like 100 plus miles an hour, listening to DJ Sasha and Digweed, just grinning our asses off. And we got back. And Ricky, those pills went in one weekend. So I then had to make a decision. Do I want to keep working on the slow and steady progress I've been on since as I was a teenager with the stock market, in the office for the 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting, into nighttime sometimes? Or do I just want to abandon that and make money from the party scene? So
how much were the pills going for at the time over there?
$25, $30.
Right.
Yeah.
Big profit margin in it.
Well, that was just the beginning of it.
Right.
The criminal enterprise was established about 96, 97. SWAT team came May 16th, 2002. But a lot happened over those years. So Wildman, on that first visit, he got raided at that place, got kicked out, and he didn't get arrested. They didn't catch him. So he meets this woman. This woman came to an apartment party we were having before he got kicked out. She was like a black striptease dancer. She worked in an all nude bar. Her entire body was covered in like S&M scars and burns. And she came with her boyfriend, who was a bouncer. Anyway, Wildman's party trick, he'd just sit there and he'd say to the whole room, does anyone want to punch me in the face as hard as they can or taser me? So he's letting people taser him. And it's like his toes are being tickled. He's just giggling like a little child. So the black stripper who's got all these scars and burns on and just walks over to him and says, that ain't shit. I taser my pussy. And Wildman's eyes are like going big now. And he's like, well, give us a demo kind of thing. And she's like, well, I'm with him, like nodding at her boyfriend. And he's like, well, get rid of him. So she asks her boyfriend to go and get her some food. Spaghetti bolognese. This is so weird, this story. And he goes to get a spaghetti bolognese. And while he's gone, I say to the whole room, everyone be quiet and pay attention. She's going to taser her private parts. And she wants to show everybody. So she just hiked the skirt up. She had no nicks on. And are you familiar with tasers, the little bolts that come out of them?
I've seen them all.
She's got it going up and down. And the little bolts are like dancing up and down. And she's in this squat position. She's just like, rolling her head around. So this is love at first sight now for Wildman. When the guy comes back with the spaghetti bolognese, he says to him, she's moving in with me. Thanks for the food. And we'll be coming over later on to get her stuff. And he stopped there and he looked like he was going to fight for a few seconds. Now, Wildman, when he's been up for days on crack and meth, and he's not slept, his eyes go completely red. And he looks like the devil.
I can imagine.
And when he's going to do someone in, his face looks completely calm. He's got the devil eyes. He looks completely calm. But one eyebrow, it goes completely up. Like, so it's almost vertical. But the other one remains completely flat. So he's looking at this guy. And the guy just backed down. I saw that many a time. The guy backed down, slammed the door and left. And that was it. Him and Seth went and collected their clothes later on. She moved in with him. They got kicked out of that place. All the furniture had been sold off to the Mexican Mafia. Fire extinguishers had been let off. It was trashed. He became completely unhousable. He was living in an area called Tempe Beach Park under a tree with a Rambo knife and a baseball bat with the stripper. And what happened was there was a lot of homeless people, and these thugs were coming and beating them up and trying to shake them down. And Wildman took the baseball bat to these thugs, and he became king of the homeless people. They worshipped him. And but him and the stripper were like Bonnie and Clyde. They were just going in shops and restaurants and taking whatever they wanted. And they got nicked. And that was when the judge said to him, Peter Mahoney, you are a menace to society. I am banning you from America for life. But that was just his first visit, believe me, because I started to send.
So did he go back home then?
Yeah, he was deported. He was deported in on a plane in chains back to the UK. He ends up getting deported multiple times.
So how did he end up getting back in then? Was it easy for him to get back in?
I have to hire Mission Impossible style teams of people to smuggle him back in through Canada and Mexico multiple times.
Okay, no.
But he was gone now for 2 years after that trip. That was it. He was gone. But the connections I'd established, especially with the new Mexican Mafia and the ravers, enabled me to build a criminal enterprise without him from there.
So over the years after that, then you must have been, obviously, when you've built this enterprise up, was it solely just going into clubs and sell them, or were you getting other people to go in and sell them and like expanding into different areas?
All right. So in the beginning then, we were throwing our own raves and we were sending them into the clubs. And in the very beginning, I would stand with like a bag of 100 pills, but I get so high, I'd end up giving most of them away. But
Yeah.
yeah, but over time, at the peak of it, by 1999, I'm not on the front line anymore. I've got over 200 people working for me. It's a fully integrated criminal enterprise. I've got my own bouncers, 20, 30 guys who are armed. I've got pills coming in, not now just into America. They're coming in through Mexico from Holland and getting smuggled over the border. We've got investments into rave clothing, music stores. And I'm living in $1 million house on the side of a mountain with my third wife.
Third wife.
Yeah.
What, did you marry them all in America?
Yeah, none of them lasted long enough for me to get a green card. But the third one, she was a she was bisexual and she fancied a striptease dancer, so she got a job at the striptease club just to seduce this woman and get in a relationship with her. And her and that woman, this was before I met her, and her and that woman were doing lesbian internet porn. Yeah. So we got married on the Las Vegas Strip.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
And what age were you then?
Pardon?
What age were you then?
All right. So nearly all this happened, Ricky, when I was in like my late 20s.
Right.
SWAT team came May 16th, 2002, and I was in my early 30s.
So you've been over there for over 10 years then at this point?
Yeah. I go from 91 to deportation, December 2007.
Right. So it's quite a long time then.
Yeah.
So before the SWAT team and everything come in, did you ever have any trouble with the police before that?
Oh, Wildman was a police magnet. He was constantly, everywhere he went, he was blowing houses up, setting fire to houses. We had to send him down to Mexico because he was so hot. And he brought his fiance over, Wild Woman, a mad scouser. I mean, if people are interested, we've got hundreds of videos of Wildman on my channel, but I think we've got 2 podcasts with Wild Woman. She stopped doing podcasts because she doesn't want to relive it anymore. But some people are more scared of her than they were of him. The police have got surveillance video of her, and she's a tiny blonde woman. They've got a video of her chasing Wildman down the street with a giant fan, trying to smash his head in. So it was my relationship with the new Mexican Mafia that schooled me on how to deal with the cops, because in the beginning, like you heard me say, it got to a point where I was just picking up the pills myself from LA. I had a radar detector on the windshield of the Mazda RX-7. I had a gun under the seat. I've got thousands of pills in the car. I'm driving 100 to 150 miles an hour on my own, or with Wildman, listening to rave music, grinning from ear to ear. Whenever the radar detector goes beep, 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 I slam on the brakes. And somehow, if I'd have got arrested at that point, it would have been all over, Ricky. This is how naive I was. But by the peak of it, I've got a guy hired who looks preppy. He's got a vehicle that's got university stickers on it. He's clean cut. If he gets pulled over, and he did get pulled over, the cops just let him go with a speeding ticket. I've flown people over from the UK. These cars are bought in their names. So if a car does get pills found in it, it doesn't trace anywhere. The $1 million house was in Wildman's cousin's Hammy's name. So, if the cops raid it and we're not there, they're going to trace it back to the UK. They're not going to be able to get us. So I went from just being happy-go-lucky, naive, to getting schooled by the new Mexican Mafia. They said to me, Shaun, look, if you ever get pulled over leaving our apartment and the cops say, can I search your vehicle? You don't have to let them search your vehicle. They have to have probable cause. And you can say to them, I'm in a hurry. I don't want you to search my vehicle. And if they force a search and they find something and they haven't got probable cause, they can't use it against you in a court of law. It's called the fruit from the forbidden tree. And then they said to me, Shaun, if the shit really hits the fan, this lawyer is expensive, but he's our top gun. You need to get this lawyer. He's a loophole lawyer. He will minimize your problems. And when all the shit went down, that was the guy that we got. But it was all plain sailing, Ricky, until a new kind of e-dealer arrived in the scene. So we had it locked down. In the beginning, there was all these little cliques of competing ravers in Arizona, and some of them would have beefs. And me and Wildman would adjudicate like little courts, and they would come to us and tell us their beefs, and we would like make a decision about it. But through this, we incorporated them all into the criminal enterprise. And when you've got all the locals working for you, all the information, anything that's going on at the street level, just flows up to the top. So what started flowing up to the top was these new dealers were stepping on our toes or attempting to step on our toes. They were steroid head jock guys, and they weren't wearing our clothes, the raver stuff. They were wearing like leopard print shirts, club wear, that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, who are these guys that are coming out in increasing numbers? So my wife at the time, the bisexual one, she was in a relationship with another woman as well. And that woman she was in a relationship was having a relationship with one of these new type of dealers. So through the women, they brokered a sit down. It was at a club in Tucson called Heart 5. So I'm thinking, hey, again, these guys might want to try and kidnap me or rob me. I don't know what's going on. So I just took one of my bouncers with me, Rossetti. He's strapped. And I said to him, look, if they snatch me, just open up on the motherfuckers. And I'm trying not to swear. And because I've been warned by YouTube on my own channel, I don't want to cause problems for you. And what me and my wife, you know, we go in, we chug some GHB. I'm on meth, and we go in there, and two guys come up to us. There's like this massive bodybuilder, steroid head blonde guy, and a shorter, stocky guy, and I'll call him the Spaniard. And then they take me into this VIP room. They yell at everybody to get the F out. And then they show me a sofa that we're all going to sit down on. And I'm thinking, they've heard of me, you know, my name was English Shaun back then. I'm going to have to put on some kind of crazy act. Inside, Ricky, like I said, I've got social anxiety. I was only this wild person on the substances. They got me pumped up. So I'm on meth and the GHB. It makes me a bit loco. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do here? And I remember my grandfather, Frederick, he always used to squeeze my leg above the knee and make me jump. So as I'm sitting down next to these big guys, I squeezed the knee and made him jump. Anyway, the Spaniard was really nice. He's like, English Shaun, we know you're a big name in the rave scene and you've got a good reputation. And we're moving a lot of product here now. Why don't you work with us? And I said, look, I've got a good reputation. I'm getting the beige presses from Holland, 100, 125 milligrams of MDMA. The product you're getting, these colored pills, I don't want any part of it. And then the big guy jumps up off the sofa and he's like, who the F do you think you are, disrespecting our pills? One call to Sammy the Bull and we can have you taken out to the desert. Now, I'd heard about Sammy the Bull, Teflon Don. It was, it'd been all over the news in America. So I'm thinking, is he a blowhard or is he dropping this name for real? It was in the back of my mind, but I wasn't sure. So the Spaniard's like, my mate's a bit of a hothead, sit back down, calms him down. And I say to the Spaniard, I say, look, there's enough demand for us to coexist. I don't need to step on your toes. You don't need to step on mine. The main thing we've got to worry about is the cops, because since you guys have been running around the raves and clubs, bragging that you're the biggest e-barons in the history of the world, you're lighting the scene up, like it's fireworks night or something, because the feds now are going through the raves in tinted window cars, filming license plates. Undercovers are coming in the raves, trying to set up deals, pretending to be out of state. That's only happened since you guys came along. So anyway, it left on that note. And what happened was, I realized they were for real and they were working for the Gravano enterprise. I'll get into that in a minute because that's complex. One of my top ecstasy sales guys, Skinner, a faction of the Gravano enterprise, enticed him to a nightclub in Scottsdale under the pretext of buying 1,000, and they knocked his teeth out, took his gun, took his money, and that's when the war was on with those guys from there. But now, let me just explain about Sammy the Bull's role in this. So this ring was run by a guy called Mike Papa, big steroid head guy, and he brought in Gerard Gravano and Karen Gravano. They were the ones who were running it at the street level. Gerard turned to his dad for money and for advice. That was all the dad's role was in it.
So is this Sammy's son that you're talking about now, is it?
Yeah, Gerard Gravano. The cops caught Gerard asking his dad for money for gas, which is petrol, which meant ecstasy. And the dad said, yeah, I'll give you so many tens of thousands. And that was it. They had evidence against him. Because Sammy's such a big name, they put him at the head of the ring. But he was really clueless as to what was going on at the street level. It was his son, Gerard Gravano, who was running it. And it was Gerard Gravano who, when I was in prison later on, told me he'd been dispatched one night to kidnap me from a gay bar and take me out to the desert. So this gay bar was distributing product for us.
I was going to hear what were you doing in the gay bar, Shaun?
We had it locked. We had the distribution in there locked down, and it was a fantastic atmosphere. It was called the Crowbar. They'd have yellow construction hat night. I remember I offered $100 to my crew. I said, who will put a yellow construction hat and get topless and go and get on the middle of the dance floor? And Wildman, he grabbed $100, got topless, put a yellow construction hat on, and he was in the middle of the dance floor, and all of these handsome hunks were grinding up to it. I'll never forget it. But anyway, this was a completely different night in the Crowbar. I was in there with my crew, and I was on a good vibe. I think there was Wildman, Wildwoman, and G-Dog, and Cody Bates, my right-hand guy, is also dead. I can get to G-Dog in a minute because I've got some great stories about him. He was one of my bodyguards. Anyway, they advised me to leave. And just after we left, Gerard Gravano showed up with an armed crew. And he later told me in prison that it had been called in. They had a bounty on me, and a striptease dancer had called it in. And they'd arrived just shortly after we'd left. And he said that they were going to take me out, try and get money for my release. And if they didn't get money for my release, they were going to eliminate the competition. Yeah. I didn't know.
So you didn't even know about it?
Didn't know at the time. Didn't know. Yeah. The first time I met Gerard Gravano was in Towers Jail. What happened was the guards chained Wildman to Gerard because they knew from the media, we were the two rival enterprises. The guards like to try and get people fighting, see what would happen. And Wildman's looking at me like, what should we do? Do you want me to do him in? And I was like, no, we need to sit and talk to him, find out what's happened, because he's been arrested before us. And we sat all night with him because they wake you up the day before to go court the next day. And he told us all the dirty tricks the prosecutors were doing and stuff like that. But the police trouble started to accumulate in the ecstasy enterprise with people getting arrested at airports. So, for example, we had one guy called Fuzzy Chris, one of my smugglers. He's also dead. He got arrested coming in from Holland. Wild Woman came in from Holland to Phoenix Airport. She got stopped. The pills were in like weight loss jars and vitamin jars, and they put them on a table and they said to her, what are they? And she said vitamins and weight loss stuff. And they put them back in her luggage and told her to have a nice day.
Okay, no.
But we thought, we need to get some advice about what to do about this. So we consulted someone who was an expert in smuggling routes, a lawyer. And the lawyer, she said, you need to start bringing them in through Mexico. So I invested in beachfront property, Puerto Penasco, where a lot of the students would go down for spring break. And the flight path was from Hermosillo Airport over to Mexico City, Air France to Paris, and then they get the train to Holland. And this was before 9/11, so don't try this, folks. Back then, you could just put them in pillowcases, thousands of pills, and get on a plane. Or if you wanted to be more safe, screwed into computer towers. The biggest shipment we ever did was 40,000 screwed into computer towers.
And that's how you were getting them in.
That's how we were getting them in, yeah.
So you must have been making a kill at that point then.
I think on the 40,000, it was like the profit was like $250,000. But by that point, I'm getting that many brought in for like $2 or $3 if you include all the costs of the smuggling mission, the legal costs, everything else. I'm fronting them out like 5,000 to one of my guys on credit at like 9 or 10. And then they're giving them their guys at like 15, 20, and they're going like 25, 30 on the streets. So there was multiple layers before it got to the streets. At that point, I was insulated. And I said to myself, you know, I've got a shield. The heads of my criminal factions are my shield because they're the ones that interface with me. If that shield ever gets pierced, I'm next. And that shield got pierced when Skinner's teeth got knocked out. So that's when I moved from Scottsdale, Arizona to the $1 million house on the side of the mountain, which was in a gated, guarded community. You couldn't even get up the street without a guard calling the house and asking you permission for him to get up the street. So that made me feel much safer. And ironically, Paul McCartney did live on the mountain range just a few miles down.
You couldn't make it up, could you? So when you were talking about your social anxiety and that as well, when you were on a come down off your drugs, your anxiety must have been going through the roof, was it? With everything that was going on.
It was, but I took Xanax.
Oh, right.
And that Xanax alleviated it. You know, a lot of us would party for days on end without any sleep and then just take Xanax and wake up as crisp as a baby. Yeah. So
again.
Do you want me to go back to G-Dog then and the New Mexican Mafia? Because that plays an important role in it.
Yeah, you can't do why if it's part of the story.
Yeah, G-Dog. When Wildman was at that first apartment complex, Rancho Marietta, we had an apartment party and we were all just chilling out. And G-Dog was this ruggedly handsome Mexican-American guy, Chicano. He's providing the white powder. I've got the pills. And a cop walked in and the cop says, I could smell the green from outside. Nobody moved, like he was going to call it in, have us all arrested. G-Dog just whipped out a gun, put it in his face, and said, the only one who's not leaving is you, mofo. Everybody run. So we all went out into the night. Now, I've never seen anything that heavy before in my life. I'm crapping it. There was another apartment in that complex, Rancho Marietta, where Seth and Fish lived, and they were moving stuff for me. So we went over there. And we were all like thinking, the cops are going to come any minute. We need to flush our stuff. And then there was like a bang, 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 bang on the door. I'm sorry, on the French window. And it was G-Dog and we let him in. And again, he schooled us. He's like, they can't get a warrant that fast. Turn the lights off, turn the TV off. Nobody make a sound. You don't need to flush your shit. And the cops came, they knocked. We didn't answer. They went on the way. He was hot in that area for the rest of the day. I smuggled him over to a house I had in Phoenix. We shot pool on meth together, had a good time. And at the end of the night, he said, look, because you and your mates protected me, me and my brothers have got your back. And I had no idea what that meant. But that's how I was introduced to the New Mexican Mafia. And if anyone's watched my Banged Up Abroad episode, it shows me going in the house, his brother's house, and I'm doing a double take. I'm thinking, like, that's not an ornament. That's where they had the rocket propelled grenade launcher on top of the TV.
Serious shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so did you end up meeting him back in the prison then, did you? Or did you get him with these boys in the prison?
So G-Dog
later on, but
G-Dog didn't get arrested with us, but he was part of my life early on. I'll give you another example. When I was still a stockbroker, G-Dog had introduced me to one of his mates, this older Mexican-American guy with silver swept-back stately hair. And I get a call from Fish. And Fish says, something's happened. I need you to grab Wildman and Seth to handle the situation. Can you get over here as fast as possible? I say, well, what's happened? He says, I don't want to say on the phone. So I went to look for Wildman and Seth. They were collecting crack debts for the Colombian in central Phoenix. So it's about half an hour later when I get to Fishy's apartment, and him and his girlfriend are at the door, and his girlfriend's crying, and I think, oh no, man, someone's assaulted her, and they want Wildman to do him in. And then I heard this noise. Zzz, zzz. I'm like, what's that? And they're looking towards this other room, and they're like, you better go look. So I walk into the room, and the guy, the older Mexican-American guy with the silver swept back hair, he's overseeing a bunch of Mexicans with cattle prods. And there's a guy on the floor who's naked, he's hogtied, he's got like this rockabilly quiff. His eyes look terrified. And the guy with the silver hair's giving them orders in Spanish. As they electrocute the guy, he rocks like a rocking horse. Piss shoots out of his dick all over the floor. His eyes almost pop out of his head. He's trying to scream, but he's muffled. Again, Ricky, I'm not a gangster. I've never claimed to be a gangster. I'm a business studies graduate who went wild. For me to see anything like this, I was crapping it.
A bit out the ordinary.
But I'm thinking, I can't show that because then they're going to think I'm weak and I'm a liability. So I'm putting on a brave face. I'm just like, the guy with the silver hair is now looking at me with these protruding eyes, penetrating eyes, like weighing me up, smiling at me with this welcome to the family look. And I'm thinking, right, I got to like just smile back. So I was like, yeah, it looks like you got this situation under control. I'll tell Wildman, I've got to get back to the office now. On the way out, I said to Fish, what the hell's happened? And he said, the guy on the floor, he's one of my customers. He bought something. He waited, came back, broke in, and tried to rob your product. As you know, I'm selling for you. As you know, I'm selling for them. He tried to rob their product. So I called you. I called them. And they got here first. And then all the way back to the office, I was thinking, oh my God, what's happened to that guy? And what did happen was they called his roommate and they said, look, we want $10,000 or he's going to get buried in the desert. And the 10,000 was paid up, so they released him.
Did you ever get involved in any physical violence yourself, or was it always just around you?
The thing, Ricky, was Wildman just got in a lot of violence for his own jollies.
Oh.
So that reputation then made people extremely worried about not paying their debts. But what I would do is, if people didn't pay their debts, Wildman would just move in with them. Because he was so hard to house. Everywhere he went ended up destroyed, banned from hotels, set fire to, blown up. There was a point where him and Wild Woman were so hot, I sent them to Mexico. And my mate said the Mexicans will kill them if they behave like they've behaved in Arizona. And there was no telephone signal or anything down there, so I couldn't contact them. So my right-hand guy, Cody Bates, he was the preppy, clean-cut guy who did a lot of running around because the cops wouldn't suspect him of anything. He went down there, found the house was completely blown up, come back, shit himself, thought they were dead, thought the locals had killed them. I had a guy who was working for me. I'll call him Frankie Flowers. He was a gay guy. He was one of the hookups to the gay scene for us. He was an ex-US military sniper who spoke Spanish. So I sent him down there, and he ascertained from the local people where they were. Now, the wild ones would always fight. Their relationship, I'm appalled by domestic violence and any violence against women. But their thing was they'd have a fight, and then, they'd beat each other up. He'd hit her, she'd stab him. And then the next day, they were like cave people. They'd just be kissing and making up. It was like foreplay for them. So they were down there having a fight. They stopped for a smoke break. Now, the gas pipes, they're not very well made in Mexico, and they cracked the gas pipe. So when they went to light up their smokes, Wildman and Wildman have both told me the story separately. They saw a wall of blue flame, and it started on the carpet. A Wildman grabbed Wildwoman, and as they were running out the house, the windows just blew out, proper like Hollywood movie style. And then some Bill and Ben fire engine came that couldn't put the fire out because it was mental, mental. Yeah. But Wildman ended up, the Mexicans didn't kill him. When I went down there, the cartel guys were running Wildman around in military jeeps, asking me for business, if I wanted to do business with them. And they were paying all the locals off with E and with acid. So that's how they paved the way, because green and white were in abundance down there. But Wildman was just giving everyone E and acid, and including the cops.
Making them all happy. Moved up on the E's.
Yeah, yeah.
So then when things started spiraling out of control and when the SWAT team actually eventually came, did you ever get arrested before they actually come and arrested you when the SWAT team come and took you to prison? Were you ever arrested off the police and took to the police station before that, or was this the first time they'd ever get you?
There was a situation on Wildman's first visit where we did get nicked, but it was I only got a taste of it. I didn't get the full experience. What happened was one of our runners came in and said that some people who owed us weren't going to pay, and Wildman threw a beer bottle through the window, and Wildman ended up getting convicted of that. But they arrested me and Seth as well, but they let us go quite quickly.
So when you get arrested over there from the police, and Shaun, obviously different over here, you get took to the police station. When you get arrested over there, it's not like an ordinary police station, is it?
Whoa. In our situation, it was May 16th, 2002. I met a woman, fallen in love. She's taught me out of the importation. She was scared of my mates. We were living in an apartment in Scottsdale. I wasn't even letting people know where we were living. I was trading the stock market. I was studying Spanish, going to the gym, just started to do kickboxing classes. Thought my life was sorted. We were saving up to move to LA. And May 16th, 2002, bam, 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 bam on the door. I look through the peephole. It's blacked out. Go to the window. It's just completely surrounded by cars. Go through to the bedroom to my girlfriend. We're like, what we're going to do? Better let him in. We're walking through the living room and just boom, door just flies off the hinges. Hands above your heads. Get on the ground now. So time does slow down. It's like you see in the movies. You can see, if you're looking at the visors of these cops, you can see this just intense focus in their eyes. And as they're fanning out and they're all focusing on you, what's registering your brain is, if you make one false move right now, or if they're trigger happy, your life is over in seconds. And they're screaming at you, swearing, get on the effing ground now, hands above your head. So we just dropped fast. It seemed like a lifetime, but we dropped fast. And then, who I later found out was one of the lead detectives, hoisted me up by the handcuffs, got in my face, and he's like, English, Shaun, we've finally got you. You're a big name from the rave scene. And he was just like mocking me. So I just started screaming to my girlfriend, I'm exercising my right to remain silent, love. I'm exercising my right to... And they pushed me out of the apartment. I was in my boxer shorts, threw some clothes at me. They had me cuffed and pushed me down the stairs and put me in a cop car and took me away.
Did your heart sink? Was that the moment when you thought, game over?
Right, so my adrenaline was so high, I didn't have time to reflect at that point. But imagine this. If you've ever seen a movie like Electric Glide in Blue or Natural Born Killers,
I've seen
I'm in this cop car, right? Stereotypical redneck cop. He's got the aviator glasses on. He's chewing the tobacco. He's got 98 KUPD hard rock blasting on the radio. And I'm in this cop car and I'm looking out the window. I'm looking at, him in the mirror, looking out the window, seeing the desert landscape around me. And that's when I was thinking, my karma has arrived.
Game over.
Yeah. But I was still clinging on to the hope, Ricky, that there was no drugs in the house. that they would have to release me. I didn't understand conspiracy and all that stuff. I was naive to the statute of limitations. In Arizona, all it takes is someone from the past 7 years to tell the cops you've done a deal with them and they've got you and they've got a witness against you. They don't have to catch you with the drugs.
What was the police station like them that they took you into?
For our case, they built a special outdoor, like fabulated building to process us. Then they put us into Tempe police station temporarily, holding cells. And I thought it was just me. But then other co-defendants started to come in. So I was realizing there's a bigger picture. Now, Cody Bates, the preppy guy, this is when I knew there was going to be problems. He said, because the first thing is, like, how were you arrested? And he was the transporter. I mean, we had an apartment just for the cash that only he knew about. And I knew if they got in, we were effed. So he said he was doing his, driving around, and he saw a helicopter above him. And he thought, right, I'm going to go from the west side. I'm sorry, from the east side, the Tempe side, over to the west side, just to drive around, just to see if this helicopter is really following me, because I'm getting paranoid. And I chose him because he didn't take drugs. He was stone cold sober all the time. He drove from the east side to the west side and back to the east side. This is like an hour, and the helicopter's still above him. So he's thinking, oh my goodness. He's on the motorway, the freeway, and then like police motorbikes, like a motorcade of them, completely surrounded him and took him off the freeway. And I'm thinking, if they spent that much money on this is really serious. And it just escalated from there, Ricky. But what happened was, at the night time, they took us down to Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail. And that is when the insane jail stories really begin, because there's a bus of 13 co-defendants, half men.
Was it the one that you're talking about?
This is the main one that all the media, this is what started my blogging, my YouTube channel, was stories about the jail system run by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff.
How many prisoners did that hold in?
10,000.
10,000?
Yeah. The other thing, Ricky, is in America, jail and prison are completely different. Jail is remand, unsentenced only. Prison is where you go when you're sentenced.
Is that the county? You've got like the county jails, haven't you? And then
the Maricopa County jail system is the main jail for Phoenix, Arizona, because Phoenix, Arizona is in Maricopa County. And I think he had about 10 different jails. People can go MCSO website and check it out. Tent City was the most famous one. There's Estrella, there's Durango, there's the women's one. And we're arriving at the intake in Madison Street Jail. There's a van, a bus, 13 of us, first group of co-defendants, half men, half women, Wild Woman's on it. The women are getting off first. Now, the new arrivals are waiting to go in. The cops have got the fresh arrestees waiting to go in. These are like gangbangers, homeless, hobos, people who are drunk, people who've been in fights, people who've been tasered by the police. A pretty rowdy bunch of people. And there were some women waiting to go in as well. And the men were checking the women out and like saying obscene things to them. Now, when they saw the women who were with us get out the van, all heads turned. And they started to like say things, like get your boobs out, that kind of stuff. And I'm seeing my female co-defendants put their heads down and not look very happy about this. Wildman, he's just got his head in the window watching all this. He has been up for over a week on meth and crack. His eyes are the devil. He's got this Viking's beard. And Wild Woman gets off and they start screaming at Wild Woman. And I see the eyebrow go up, 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 up. And his face just looks completely calm. And I know he's going to do something. So then the redneck cop's like yelling at all the men to get off. We've got to come down these steps. And he yells at Wildman to get off. He's on the top step. And Wildman refuses to get off. And he just goes like this. Goes, you lot disrespecting our women. I'm gonna be in there with all of you in a minute. I'll have any of you. There was a lot of swear words in that as well. And then he goes, do you think I won't? And then he puts his head back, widens his eyes, he's got his beard out here. He goes, and veins are just popping out of his head. And they all shut up. They all shut up.
Good impression, that, Shaun.
Oh, I'll never forget it, man. He's a good man to get arrested with.
I bet. So when you went into was it the reception area where you've all got to wait to get processed?
I tell you, I'll never forget it. It's called the Horseshoe.
Was it red hot over there as well, like the heat?
So the Horseshoe is underground, so you don't know what time of the day it is. But when the heat goes up to almost 50 degrees, it's the Sonoran Desert, 120, 130 on the American scale, almost 50 on our scale. The heat just rises in the cell. And then when the heat goes back down, you know it's night. That's how you know when it's day or night. So you go into the intake and they take your belt, they take your shoelaces. There's a woman, an old woman, a witchy woman behind a plexiglass screen. And she's just yelling at you. Have you got syphilis? Have you got herpes? Have you got lice? Have you got hepatitis C? Have you got HIV? And she's just yelling all and ticking these questions off. And then you get past her, they pat you down. And then it's called a horseshoe because it's in a horseshoe shape on the ground. You go in at one end and you come out the other, and they leave you in there for days. But that you gotta see a judge, and you gotta be classified before you get out. Now, the cells, I don't know how many people are designed for, but we're all on the floor, sardined, like just completely just wall to wall people. There's one toilet, so someone will take a dump, and everyone will be like trying to put the t-shirts over their faces because the whole place is stinking out. So in America, it's all gangs by like this street gang versus that street gang, red versus blue, and it's KOS or fight on site. So someone will come in, and it's on site, and like these gangbangers will start fighting, or the drunk people will start fighting. There's blood all over the walls. The guards will run in. Outside in the corridor, they've got these things that look like medieval torture devices called restraint chairs, and they'll strap you in. You're locked in this restraint chair. It's tilted back, this black chair, and they put a hood over your head, a spit hood, and you see people in these restraint chairs just trying to get out of them. They're just tied in, and so you constantly like just changing cell to cell to cell. And you're not with the same people in each cell. It just all the way through it. And before we went to the judge, you get a piece of paper with your charges on it. You go to this little window. And this is, again, when I knew I was in real big trouble. Mine was conspiracy, running a crime syndicate, running a continuous criminal enterprise, using electronic devices to facilitate drug transactions. And then as your bail bond, next to my conspiracy charge, $750,000 cash only. And I said to the clerk behind the glass, I said, is that real? And she goes, no, it can't be real. Perhaps they've accidentally put another zero on it. And then I went back to my cell thinking that they just put a zero on it, thinking I had a chance of bailing out. And then Wildman somehow managed to get out of where he was and bang on my window. And he waved his sheet. And he said, what's your bail bond? And I said, 750,000, but they told me there's a zero on it. And he said, it's not a mistake, La. Mine's 500,000. So I knew we were through at that point. Yeah.
So where did they put you after that then? Did you get
all right? So
that's just like the sort of the induction wing.
Yeah, that's the processing center for the new arrestees. At the end of the horseshoe, by the end of the horseshoe, they've stripped you out. You're in pink underwear and black and white striped pajamas, and they tell you at the very end where you're going to go next. So me and Wildman were classified to Towers Jail, also run by Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Medium security in the beginning because I end up in maximum, I end up in supermax. So we go off to Towers Jail. They've got a do not house together, so I can't be housed with him because they don't want us, sharing things and running things together. So I go off. I think it was to Tower 6, and he went off to 2. And I know what you're on about induction. I don't think they do an induction.
Oh,
What they did was, we were just in a series of holding cells when we arrived at Towers. They gave us a skinny mattress, like a yoga mat, a sheet, a pack that's got an anti-shank toothbrush. Actually, I didn't get that till later. Even they just end up giving you a mattress and a sheet.
Was it all doubles? Was it all double?
It's what?
Was all the pads doubles, like 2'd up?
They were singles that had 3 in them, and some had a person on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got assigned to a cell, and I'll never forget it. I'm walking down the corridor in Towers Jail, and it's like you'd have fresh meat. All these massive tattooed men are just pounding on the glass, and they're looking at you, and they're like this, have you brought any smokes in? And I got to my tower, and I was walking up the stairs. I'd been assigned a cell on the upper tier, and everyone just looking at me, the new arrival. And thank God there was a guy in there. I'll call him Tracy the hippie, who on a night, I'd had a limo night, and him and some of his female friends had come in the limo with us. And there was me and some of my female friends. We'd had quite a funky night, let's say. And I'd really took care of him. And this is how karma just helps you so much, man. And what he did was, he on the top tier, he grabbed a hold of me and he's like hugging me. He's like, English Shaun, can't believe they got you. And he said, everybody. He made the whole day room shut up. And he goes, this is English Shaun. He's my brother from the streets, and he's a good effing dude. And everyone just was like nodding and just giving me fists. And that was really helpful, man. That was really helpful.
Put you at ease a bit, huh?
It put me at ease a bit. There was extreme violence in there constantly. Let me describe it. All right. So Towers Jail, you've got a guard tower in the middle, and there's a plexiglass fishbowl at the top. Got 2 guards in it at the top. They're looking down on 4 pods, and there's corridors between each pod. Now, each pod was designed for 15 people. You've got 15 cells, 2 tiers. So as you look into the pod, you see metal grid stairs going up to the upper tier. So at the very back is the 2 tiers. And then you've got like a shower at the end on the bottom tier. So I went up to the upper tier, went to my cell, met my cellie, and that was the beginning of it for me. Wildman goes to his cell, but there was a guy who came in who they suspected was a chomo. Now I didn't know what a chomo was at that point. So what happened was, I was in the day room. It was late at night. I just arrived. The people had kind of like filtered back to the cells, a lot of people. And the white boys, they call them the Woods. It's like saying, mate, what up, Wood? They like come up to me and they're like, hey, Wood, we want a word with you. So I'm like, all right, what's up? And they're like, back in that cell over there. So 3 of them follow me in. Young guys, like in the 20s, stocky. They got Hitler, Swazis, lightning bolts, all that kind of stuff on them. And then they close the door behind me. Not locked, but, shut. I'm not going to be able to get out. I turn around in this tiny cell, and then the biggest one gets in my face. He's like, what are your charges? And this was before, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, this was before Tracy, the hippie, had introduced me properly. Actually, this was in a cell before that. And what happened was, I said to them, I don't know what my charges mean. Now, this is not a good answer. Because
No.
conspiracy, crime syndicate, criminal. Who knows what that means, man? I'm new to this. So I'm thinking, right, they're going to give me a pass. I don't know what my charges mean. No. Now they've got me against the wall about to attack me. What do you mean you don't know what your charges mean? Are you a chomo? Are you a chomo? I don't even know what a chomo is. So in the end, they make me pull out my charge sheet. And they saw my charges. And they were impressed by the bail being $750,000. They were like, damn, are you guys the mafia? What did you guys do? Who did you guys kill? And I was like, no, raves, ecstasy. We never killed anyone. We were all chilled out. Yeah, so that was my introduction. Tracy the hippie, that came later on because you constantly moved around when I was moved. But they another guy who came in with me, he was a suspected chomo. So what happened was, they waited till he was in the shower and they battered him, and they left him whimpering in a pool of blood. And then this big guy, he was like, how come we can still hear him, dog? Oh, not good enough. You didn't smash him good enough. Yeah, we smashed him. Not good enough. He goes in like he's trying to crack this guy's head open like it's a coconut, just crack, crack, crack until this guy was unconscious. Then every 30 minutes, a guard does a security walk. So the guard comes in, they see this guy laid out, and they're like, lock down, everybody lock down. We run back to the cell. And when he's getting carried out on the stretcher, there wasn't just blood coming out of his head. It looked like yellow stuff was coming out of his head. And he never came back, so I don't know what happened to him. Yeah. But the gang, they explain all the rules to me. They're like, if someone calls you a punk, a bitch, or hits you, you must fight them on the spot, or else the whole gang will attack you. You must take showers, or they'll smash you for bad hygiene. You can't go making friends with the guards. They'll attack you for snitching. You can't sit at the tables with the other races. They'll attack you for that. Now, because I've been in the horseshoe for days, I was stinking. And they were like, yeah, you need to take a shower right now, dog. You fucking stink after being through the horseshoe. Hygiene is very important. You're representing the white boys. But what happened was, a couple of weeks later, I was working out in the day room with a La Victoria gang member called Sniper. He was Chicano, Mexican-American. And the Woods, again, they came out. They're like, we want a word with you, Wood. And I look over at Sniper. He's like, yeah, go talk to your people. And then again, back in the cell with them, close the door. They're like, Wood, take a look around the day room. I'm like, yeah, looking around the day room. Do you see any of the white boys working out with the other races? Nope, don't see any of the white boys working out with the other races. They're like, you've got a lot to learn, Wood. Now go back to your workout.
Some politics.
Politics, yeah.
So was it all like that then? Was it like divided into gangs and the groups with the races?
Yeah, 4 gangs, 4 main gangs. So you got the AB, the Aryan Brotherhood, run the whites. You got the Mau Mau, run the blacks. You've got the Mexican Americans, the Chicanos, who've got their own gang linked with the new Mexican Mafia. Then you've got the old school, the Mexican Nationals, the original old Mexican Mafia. The Chicanos, the ones who were born in America, are at war with the ones who were born in Mexico. They're like half or more of the prison population in Arizona. They would be the biggest, but they're at war. Wildman said the most deadly violence, people getting killed, he saw, was the attacks on site from those 2 gangs being at war. It was scary stuff that he told me.
And were they the biggest gangers in population-wise, were they?
It got to the point, I don't know what it's like right now, but Arizona's on the border with Mexico. They've got whole prisons now for the Mexican nationals, so they don't kick off with the other gangs. So they explain all the races, all the race rules. And I was lucky because Wildman, he established himself very quickly as a maniac. Now, about 3 years ago, a guy called Bruno, who was an enforcer, for Little Italy, we called it. There was a point where the Italian Mafia took over from the Aryan Brotherhood, and the head of the Italian Mafia, he was out at night when we were all locked down, smoking with the guards, giving them orders. And he said to me, Shaun, who do you want as your cellmates? I'm like, what do you mean we want my cellmates? How can you do that? It's like, don't ask any questions. Who do you want as your cellmate? He tried to move Wildman in, but he couldn't because there was a do not house. But some of my other cellmates were arrested in different groups and they didn't have a do not house. So he moved Joey Crack in, and this other guy, who was one of my guys in, one of my security guys in, with me as my cellmates. So every night, Little Italy, the Italians were coming into my cell. Joey Crack was a very charismatic speaker. He was like this feisty Italian New Yorker, very tall, with this lean face like an Afghan hound. And he'd hung out with Wildman on the streets. So every night he's telling us hours and hours of Wildman stories to the Italian guys. And they're laughing their asses off. And they're like, we've got to meet this Wildman. So we arranged for them to meet Wildman at Catholic Mass. And Bruno, one of their enforcers, he sat next to me on the back row. Wildman sat on the other side of me. And these guys were big, powerful guys. And when they shook hands, I almost flew out of my seat. It was so powerful. Anyway, Bruno, I lost touch with him. But he saw my Banged Up Abroad episode in America. It's called Locked Up Abroad over there about 3 years ago. And he got in touch. And I've interviewed him 4 or 5 times, man. And I said, look, what did you guys think about Wildman in the jail? He's like, yeah, he was a maniac. He had a big heart. He was like a force of nature, a lone wolf, just a machine. But everybody had a lot of love and respect for him. But you could see, like, you know, he would just do anything. And, oh man, Bruno's such a good guy as well. When the Italians asked me to start working out with them, I knew I was in with them. And my lawyer, the guy the New Mexican Mafia referred to me, he was the head of those guys, his lawyer as well. What happened at Catholic Mass? This is a funny story. It's not all violence. The Catholic Mass priest was very old, and his mum had died, and he was giving this sermon about, look, we need to pray for her, and everyone was getting very moved by it. Now, you've got some very religious prisoners on the front row. They've got tattoos of Jesus and Mary and stuff. That's how serious they take it. At the back, you've got me and Wildman and the Italians and the naughty people. And the priest is going row to row giving communion. And the Italians are very religious. Some of them were crying when the priest was saying about how his mum was going to die. She's in hospital. We need to pray for her. They were all teary-eyed. So the priest comes to the back row. He gives us all the communion. I ate my communion. Anyway, Wildman, he's sick of it. He just spits the communion in his hand, slaps it on his eye like a pirate's patch, and goes, ha ha ha, you're all sinners. You ain't effing fooling me. Ha 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 ha. And the front row's turning round. And they're like, you know, telling him to shut up. And he just doesn't care. And even like some of the Italian guys were like shaking their heads like, what's wrong with this guy? Wildman was just buzzing off it all. The priest by now, he's turned away from us and he's walking to the front of the room. Half the room are just looking at Wildman because he's disrupting the service. He takes the communion off his eye and he launches it like a frisbee at the priest. And the whole room watches it. It's going, skims the ceiling, comes down, and it hits the priest square in the back. The Italians had this guy who was like their butler, and he ran out and he grabbed it before the priest could see it. And the priest turned around. The Wildman was like, the priest is so old. How old do you think his mother is? It's probably I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to be disrespectful. yeah. But yeah, what I'm trying to say here, Ricky, is I'm not a big tough guy. I've never claimed to be. I was a guy, a business studies guy who got gangsteritis. And that's when you've watched too many movies like Scarface and you meet these people in real life and you're buzzing off it and you get addicted to it. And I was lucky because Wildman was with me. Several of my bouncers were in there with me. And then the Italian guys, they took me into their clique as well, while that lasted for the few months.
Where did the Italians come in with the prison gangs, and what gang were they in?
That's a very good question, Ricky.
Because obviously they wouldn't have the whites, the blacks, or the Mexicans, would they?
No. So here's what happened. I'm going to have to backtrack. And there was a guy who was the head of the whites, who got a bit arrogant. Now, under every head of the gang, a guy's called torpedoes. They'll go in, no questions asked, just beat someone up to try and earn their stripes, get their tattoos, whatever, rise up in the gang. There was a cage fighter called Gravedigger. He had the devil as a puppet master tattooed on his chest. He was like 6.5 foot or something like that. And the guards would just have him fight people and make bets on it, and and they'd watch him, and he'd have people pinned down in wrestling locks, and he'd be chiseling their faces in while he's got them pinned down, and pool of blood would just be expanding around them, and the guards would just be watching it, just buzzing off it. So he got moved. You get in a situation, you get moved. He got moved into our pod. So the head of the whites got really cocky. Now, there was a black guy who never lost a fight. I'll call him Smackdown. It was the head of the blacks. And it was breakfast time. And the head of the whites was getting cocky. And he said something to the head of the blacks. And the head of the blacks goes, "No, ain't no punk-ass white boy going to talk to me like that, motherfucking bitch." And he calls someone a punk-ass bitch, which he did. It's fight on the spot, or else your own gang turns on you and attacks you. So he called the head of the whites out. The head of the whites tried to fight him in the cell on the stairs, which was out of view of the cameras. He comes running out after a few, like 30 seconds, a minute, and he sits down, and it's like, I fought him, he won, the beef squashed, and everyone's just shaking their heads. The whole day room are like, go back in. And the head of the blacks is like, "What was that, you punk-ass white boy? Get your ass in the back in here right now." and he's like, no, he didn't want any more. He was like, he beat me. I don't need to go back in. The beef is squashed. It's all good. This is the head of the whites. His own torpedoes are like, go back in. And he's like, nah, he ain't going back in. So Gravedigger, he sat next to him, 6.5 foot, and he just stands up. He's staring down at him. And he's like, "If you don't go back in right now, you're going to have to roll your ass up, and I'm the new head of the whites." And he knew what that meant. So he went back in. He got smashed again. He ran out so fast, he ran into the stairs he ran into the pole under the stairs and dinged his head. And Gravedigger took over. But then Gravedigger orchestrated a race riot because the head of the blacks, he was kind of bullying people of all races out of commissary. He came into my cell, tried to get a Snickers bar out of me, and I was like, "No, dog. If I give you this, that's like a meal I ain't going to eat." But he was sweating everybody, and they decided that if they sent one torpedo in, he would just beat them and claim his right to stay in the pod. So every race sent a torpedo in, and they had more torpedoes outside as backup. And in the end, the white torpedo went in. He was a guy I knew, and he put Smackdown in a headlock. But because he was a trained fighter, he knew what to do. He sandwiched him up against the wall, put his head forward, flicked his head back, and instantly broke the guy's nose. They were pulverizing him. I was on the phone to my missus in the day room, and the guards are supposed to wait for backup in a situation like that, but there was these two tough guards. And what happened was the blacks were playing on the table in the day room. They saw the violence upstairs, and all hell just broke loose. People were picking up mops and brooms, doing like ninja moves. They were trying to get up the stairs to help the other black guy, and people were pushing him down the stairs. There's this massive black guy, and he came down the stairs like a bowling ball, and just knocked everybody out the way. So this battle on the stairs, I'm trying to get back to my cell through this. And then that guard just came in a spacesuit with a fire extinguisher sized canister of chemical spray and just blasted the whole room. And it goes in your eyes and the snot runs. I had an old timer cellmate, and he was like, just wrap a wet towel around your head and blink, get all the shit out of your eyes. In the end, the white torpedo and Smackdown were still in the cell, and they just kept spraying the spray, and they were just fighting blind, and they just kept spraying and spraying while they were fighting blind. And then when they finally stopped, the white guy came out first with his nose pointing over here, And he said, "Before you put the handcuffs on, do you mind if I put my nose back in place?" And he just went, put his nose back in place. SmackDown got out and he's like, "Because of all that 3-on-1 shit, I'm going to get all y'all when I get out of lockdown." He looked like he hadn't even had a scratch on him. And he got out. And this is leading up to the story of how the Italian Mafia took over after the race riot. But because of the time constraint, we might have to do a part 2. I'd just like to say as well to the viewers, I've got a huge documentary coming out with Sammy the Bull later this year. They've interviewed my lead detective, he's never spoke before. They've interviewed Skinner, he's never spoke before. They've interviewed my aunt, my family members, Gravano family members. And me and Sammy the Bull are going to do a big collaboration after that comes out. We're not supposed to do anything before it comes out. And yeah, so we're really looking forward to that. Huge thank you, Ricky, for having me on. If there's any more questions, I might have a few more minutes before.
Well, obviously there was a bit more leading up to get the full story about the prison, about the time and stuff. But obviously, if we're going to have to wrap it up, we'll just have to come back and do a part 2.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I think the viewers will be interested to hear because, like you say, we're a bit strapped for time.
Yeah.
There's still quite a bit more to go into about the sentence that you got, then coming back to the UK, and then everything that's going on now. So what we will do, people, if you're here, stay tuned. Hopefully in the next week or 2 after this goes out, we'll get part 2 up and running. So we'll stay tuned and keep a lookout for that.
I'd like to add as well, I'm hosting the Michael Francis tour. He's touring across the UK. Tickets are on Eventbrite. I hope to see some people come along. It's going to be amazing. I hosted the last one, a few of the gigs there. And also, my book that covers this, Time in the Jail, is Hard Time, like you mentioned.
That's the first one I read, I think.
It's part of a trilogy, Party Time, Hard Time, Prison Time. And there's 30 plus hours of stories.
There's plenty of stories on that there.
Yeah.
I think it might have been in that book. There's one thing that I always remember because I was in prison at the time. And when I was eating some of the food off the servery, it stuck in my mind when some of the stew you were eating was called Red Death.
Oh, yeah, Red Death.
Because when I was going up and getting my servery food at the time I was eating, I was thinking, this sounds like the fucking stuff Shaun was eating.
let me, I'll give you the Red Death story. In the morning, it was moldy bread, green bologna, this raw sausage meat. Sometimes it had this like green shine to it. They called it green bologna. The mold on the bread, blue, green. We were so hungry, Ricky, we would scratch the mold off the bread. And if the bread was stale, we put it in water and swill it down. So I converted to the Hindu religion to try and get a vegetarian religious diet. And I thought I was outsmarting the system. So instead of the green bologna in the morning, I got this peanut butter, but it was burnt. It tasted rank. And in the evening, I got some spuds and a veggie burger. The veggie burger was as hard as a discus. I had to put it in water and swill it to get it down. And it gave me bad breath for about 2 days. And the spuds, I saw the spuds, you know, an Englishman, these spuds. I thought, yeah, this is brilliant. But as soon as you got into the spuds, you saw the lesions. And there was strands of human hair in the spuds all the time as well. Yeah. And that's honestly, that's just like the first year of the jail we've covered today. I've got 6 years of it. There's so many stories, Ricky. There's tons.
Like I say, we'll cover that in part 2 because obviously you went on to the maximum security prisons and the supermax.
Yeah.
When you've come back home, there's plenty more to go through, but we'll leave that one for part 2.
Yeah, shout out to Chris as well, McPherson.
Hi, Chris. Well, I have been speaking with him, and I think he's going to come down to the Kevin Lane do down at London.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, brilliant.
I'll share it on my channel, on my community page. I'll share the link and everything on there.
Oh, appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
Kenny Noy was supposed to be on, wasn't he? But his probation stepped in because he's not allowed to associate with other known criminals, is he?
The cops blocked it. Party poopers, yeah.
But there's still some interesting characters there. It's going to be Kev, Matt Legg, and Kenny Collins.
Yeah, and Fury.
Oh yes, I forgot about Peter Fury.
Yeah.
So it should be an interesting night, but you'll definitely see me there. I'll be coming down with Chris.
Oh, brilliant, man. It's been a while, hasn't it?
But Sean, thanks very much for coming on, mate. Well, like I say, we'll definitely catch up for a part 2.
Yeah. Cheers.
Nice one.
All right. Take care, brother. Much love and respect.
Nice one. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
All right. Cheers. Bye.